Okay, welcome to episode 5. It's been slightly delayed this week. Last week I updated with a collaborative painting instead of this drawing episode. There's going to be different things that I upload at different times. I've had a really large response to episode 4. So I've got lots of pieces of work to show you. And I'm trying to find new formats, new ways of doing this. And I think for this episode, because I have so many, and just to save on editing and splicing things together a little bit, I'm going to show you my drawing first, and then I'm going to piece them all together at the end. So the gallery of other people's contributions will be all towards the end. I'm going to fast forward through this anyway in a moment, and you'll get to see a sped up version of my drawing. And like I say, at the end you'll see other people's contributions from the last episode's drawings. If you're new to this channel, I'll just briefly explain it. What I intend to do on every single episode of the drawings is to produce a sketch, a doodle, and then people can download it from my Patreon page, which is in the description, which is a link for in the description rather. You can go and download the file or the flat JPEG image. I'll probably make it a PNG in fact, but either way you can either download it as the file and you can start to separate it from the background, or you can just have it as a flat image. You can add your own details to it, you can add in colour and texture and other elements to it, and then you upload it to me, and there is a Dropbox link that you can actually upload files to me as well. You don't need to be a patron at all to download the drawing over at Patreon, as I believe you don't even need to create an account. You can just go and click on it and download the file. I've decided that I need to start closing some of the links to Dropbox for the older episodes. I'm still finding that I'm getting 1 or 2 people contributing towards like episode 1 or episode 2, which is fantastic. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm hugely appreciative that everyone is doing that, but I'd quite like to keep the momentum going forward. So I'm going to, as of this week, close the links to episode 1 and episode 2, so you can only really now contribute towards 3, 4 and 5, and I'll keep on that basis really. So if you're watching this for the first time, this video, and this is one of the older ones, then it might just be worth checking to see how old exactly this is. If there is a much more up-to-date episode, then it might be best to contribute towards that rather than this one. But obviously, if you're just enjoying watching, then please carry on enjoying watching till the end and see how other people have interpreted it, because that's really a large part of what these videos are, is how other people can interpret what I provide as a drawing into something that expresses something about them as an artist, or at least their vision. When I first created this particular channel, I thought it was going to be more of a place to showcase my own work and perhaps have a small amount of input from subscribers, but I very quickly, within the first episode or 2, realised this is actually better as something that fundamentally is a collaboration channel, and hence I changed the name of the channel from my name, James Julia Artist, to James Julia Art Collaborations. So now I think it better reflects what the channel seems to need to be. I am considering creating yet another channel, so I've got my main tutorials channel, I've got this one, which is collaborations, and I am considering creating yet another channel, a third one, that is going to be, it's pretty much just my own thing, so I might be doodling and painting and just expressing what I want to, and I can showcase my work there. But I'm not quite at a stage where I'm ready to do that and put that together, so I'm trying to find a balance where I can produce my tutorials, as well as working full-time obviously. So as soon as I've figured out the right balance for that, then I might find time to create this third channel. If anyone's interested in that, I will be sure to let people know, but we're not quite there yet, maybe in a few weeks. Okay, I'm going to leave this particular drawing here for this episode. I could go further into it. I could get into a lot more detail, but I'm going to leave it open enough for people to interpret what they see in it at this relatively early stage. Just before I show you people's contributions for last episode's drawing, I'll just remind you there is a link down in the description to my Patreon page where you can download this file, or flat image, or Procreate file, or even a Photoshop file. I've said in previous videos, I don't mind whether you print this off and colour it in with traditional materials, or whether you work digitally. I've no judgment on that. I'm just interested in receiving the interpretations, really. Make sure to upload whatever you come up with to the link that's in the description as well, to my Dropbox submission requests. And make sure to get it back within about a week and a half, generally, is the amount of time that most people have before I show what people have managed to come up with. So have fun with that. And now let's look at people's contributions from last time. Okay, so this first contribution is actually someone's response to the drawing I did in episode 1. So this piece of work is from, and I do apologise if I pronounce your name incorrectly, but Ilda Karimov has produced this wonderful drawing. It's actually a really gorgeous piece of work. So he's taken those forms and added loads of kind of figures and faces that are hidden within a strange kind of surreal landscape. Definitely a piece of work that I could look at for quite a long time and find new kind of meanings and depths in there. So a really gorgeous piece of work, even though it's an old piece, or rather it links to an older drawing, the older episode 1. I still felt it was worthwhile enough to show people, because I just really think it's a great piece of work. So thanks very much for that contribution, really, really lovely. Okay, so in response to episode 4 now, I'm going to show you what people have managed to come up with. This first contribution is from Andre Peters, a really vibrant, colourful response, and there's quite a theme that's running through this set of responses from episode 4. There seems to be quite a few that have seen sort of insectoid-like legs and shapes, and a couple with wings as far as I remember, going through these. This particular instance is it's quite fresh, quite vibrant, quite colourful, and at the same time quite amusing as well. So really thanks very much for that, Andre, really nice piece of work. Okay, we've got 2 contributions from Andy Gradeville this time. He'd sent me one initially and then decided that this particular drawing was more worthwhile, a better version. But I'm going to show you both because I think they're both really fantastic. Now, Andy stated that this particular piece was in response to the painting collaboration 1.1 that I uploaded most recently, and it inspired him to have another go at interpreting episode 4 drawing, and this is what he's come up with. Really love the sense of light and the drama in this one, Andy. Really, really creative, really lovely. And it's really nice to see that you've taken inspiration from the painting and applied it to this one. It's come out really, really nicely. But also your first contribution, again, is really interesting. So it looks like he's mirrored the image, so you can see on the left and the right, it's obviously a mirror of the basic fundamental shapes that I gave, and he's turned it into something like a skull face with horns and sharp teeth. So quite an interesting interpretation, but I really, really like it. Really appreciate you sending both of those to me, Andy. Thanks very much. Okay, so this next contribution is from Chris Jackson. And looking at this is really, really surreal selection of things put together here, so it's really cool. I'm trying to interpret it. There's lots of things going off, but in terms of trying to figure out exactly what it is, like with a lot of surreal work, it sometimes takes quite a while of looking at to figure out everything. But what I do see is really awesome. I like the kind of bubble face. It's got a kind of shiny head, like a bubble with an expression on it. Strange kind of body features, and then some kind of strange bone structures with burning candles on them as well. Really cool. Especially like the background, actually, the sense of sort of drama. It's almost like going into another dimension or something. Really creative, really imaginative, Chris. Thanks very much for that. Okay, this next piece is from Cody Rowan, who's added colour, texture, lines and detail to this. Some really interesting use of brushes and colours. Kept the basic shapes the same, but has added lots of layers of sort of extra interest in there, and a really interesting sort of infinity symbol going off in the red sun there as well. And then there seems like there's lots of sort of veins that are running through there. It makes it look quite anatomical, kind of bone structure with a vein system running throughout it as well. Really like that, so thanks very much, Cody, for that. Really great piece of work. Okay, we've got a really gorgeous piece of work from Cree Longjohn. Beautiful colour palette, and I really like the fact that it's become quite illustration-like. It's almost like a block print or something. It's very different from the kind of style that personally I would tend to steer towards, but I like it all the more for that in some ways. Definitely got a kind of comic book. You could see it in a graphic novel. Not sure I'd have the ability to continue working into this because it's so far away from my normal style, but I'm super appreciative of the effect and the kind of general aesthetic of it. I think it's a really beautiful piece of work, Rhys, so thanks so much for contributing that. Okay, this next contribution is from David Mihai, a really kind of galactic, something very much a kind of planetoids, something that's existing maybe in deep space, some kind of alien creature. It seems to have a brain on top, very much a kind of living organism floating in space there. Really imaginative, really creative. I like the way the planets lined up with the brain there, so you got these series of kind of circles lining up with each other. Kind of reminds me like some kind of hybrid between 2001 imagery and something from Alien as well. Really nice that, David, thanks so much for that. Okay, this next piece of work is from Dennis, or his artist name is doodle_pic at Instagram. I absolutely love this. Really beautiful piece of work. Taking this in directions that I definitely wouldn't have foreseen, but I absolutely love the style. I love the kind of trees and weird sci-fi elements that are mixed together. Something organic and mechanical all put together. Now he's shown me this at various different stages. He showed me how it's evolved from a sketch into a full colour piece of work. He told me that he doesn't normally use, or doesn't often use, that much colour, so he's not entirely happy with it, but I think it's actually really beautiful. So fantastic piece of work. Really appreciate you contributing that. It's definitely inspired me to think about what I might be able to do with my own work as well. So it's a really beautiful piece of work. Thanks so much for that. The next contribution is from Ian Clougher. Again, another kind of sci-fi feel to this one. The legs of it, if you like, definitely look like joints of a weird kind of sci-fi creature. Maybe something organic in the center of it, but with a sci-fi shell around it. Really gorgeous sense of texture at the bottom, and then water sort of rippling around the bottom of it as well. Again, it's a really interesting mix of quite cartoon, illustrative aesthetic to it, but at the same time, it's full of detail, full of texture, and really full of vibrancy. I really like this, Ian. Again, it's quite different from the kind of style that I would come up with myself. Like I say, I'm super appreciative of that fact. This is the kind of thing that I want to see from other people, how they're going to take something that, for me, I've got a certain style that is quite stuck in its ways in some ways, but then to see how other people can spin that off in their own style is really fascinating to me. So really appreciate that, Ian. Great piece of work. Okay, we've got another contribution from John Arts. John really goes to town on these pieces of work. He produces full finished paintings, and this is another one I really, really love. So he's repeated the basic shapes that I came up with, added wings, put it in a setting, and really got a lot of mood, a lot of drama. A really, really nice piece of work, John. So thanks for that, really good. Okay, this next piece of work is from Justin Carlson. Super sci-fi piece of work. Sci-fi to the max, really, this one, really nice. So again, we see sort of joints and legs. This one's gone in a full kind of mechanoid spider. The little pincers at the front, a laser beam going out of its, what we can only assume is his eye. Also love the background, the sense of movement and drama. Really makes it a more dynamic kind of feel on it as well. Really love it. Thanks so much, Justin. Really good piece of work. Okay, this next piece of work is from Karen Cluner. Quite subtle. Some of the shapes that I put into that drawing, they're there, but they're really quite muted, and I really like that aspect of it. So she's got some of the shapes coming through there, but they're kind of subdued, and you have to look really closely to see some of those subtle forms coming through. Really sensitive, really nice sense of mood and drama. The colour scheme is absolutely gorgeous. The mainly dark canvas with just a hint of really vibrant, beautiful, rich colours. Gorgeous piece of work, Karen, really love it. Okay, this next piece of work is from Kefalari Carnes, and an amazingly surreal piece of work. Something kind of disturbing about it, but in an awesome way. So we've got all sorts of, to me it looks like there's some real symbolism going on here, with a baby with all sorts of strange, stretched, elongated arms that are clutching at the baby perhaps, but then we've got some kind of timer going on. It looks like maybe like a bomb or something, I'm not too sure. Something very strange about it, but actually in a really, really cool way. Really like that. Again, I don't think my imagination could ever have come up with this, so really cool to see how somebody can take my drawings and then make it into something utterly different than what I'm ever going to be capable of. So really, really appreciate that. Beautiful piece of work. Okay, this next piece of work is from Kenneth McLaughlin, and he's taken my drawing I provided and he stretched it out and then interpreted the stretched version into some kind of alien creature running at us, maybe in some weird, it almost looks like a medieval sci-fi kind of landscape with sort of strange towers that look like maybe the medieval, but they also have a kind of futuristic kind of look as well. And then they've got this creature with two eyes, and then something strange coming out of its head as well. Maybe arms, maybe ears, not too sure. Really nice piece of work anyway, Kenneth. Really love it, thanks for that. This next piece of work is from Lauren Bergman, and these shapes are really gorgeously sort of added. added wings, added them to an insect. So you've come up with a really beautiful piece of work there. Really, really love it. I like the kind of limited colour palette that you've come up with as well. And all the little details, all the little hairs on the legs of the insects, the kind of faces on there as well. It's actually really gorgeous, this, to look at close up. It makes for a really nice piece of work. So thanks so much, Lauren, really appreciate that. This next piece of work is from Peter Crabman, and he's really stripped back some of these forms, and they look almost like a diagram, that you might expect to see in a manual for some kind of machinery. Definitely more of a mechanistic, mechanical look to these lines and this drawing, but really dynamic. Really, really like that, Peter. And I really like the fact that Peter's decided that it doesn't need to be coloured in. The line work, sometimes black and white line work can be just as beautiful as a fully rendered colour piece. And in this particular instance, I really love it. So thanks so much, Peter, for that. Now, just like earlier on with Andy's piece of work, where he'd mirrored this piece of work is from Piers MacLeod, and Piers has been an ongoing supporter of mine over at Patreon, and I've seen some beautiful work come from Piers. He's really, really good at taking my tutorials and applying them to different things, and he's taken this drawing, this illustration, and added some of the fire tutorials from what I can see to this. He's created something with a huge amount of drama, fantastic overall look on this, and I really, really love it. Just makes me wish that I'd come up with something similar myself. Really beautiful piece of work, that, Piers. I do hope you get involved in some of the future episodes as well, because your work and your style is really coming along. Really beautiful piece of work. Okay, this next piece of work is from Slavomir Nishko, and he's taken some of these forms, and it definitely looks, again, something quite insectoid with the kind of forms and the shapes, but then something futuristic and sci-fi like about it as well. Really nice piece of work, that, Slavomir. I like the fact that it looks more traditional. It looks like charcoal that's been used on it. You know, it's gotten away from the digital appearance, and it definitely looks like more traditional medium and materials. So definitely appreciate that. Thanks so much for that, Slavomir. Keep on contributing some lovely work. Okay, this next contribution is from Stian Ritland, and it's an absolutely gorgeous piece of work, Stian. I super appreciate the time and effort that you've put into this one. Really is definitely on my street, this kind of piece of work. So I can see the shapes, it's been twisted to its side, but I can see the forms that I did or provided in my first drawing. But then the colours, the textures, the general kind of concept of it is really fascinating. This is definitely the kind of piece of work that I could see myself further working into. So I'm looking at this, Stian, and I'm considering possibly make this part of a set of videos, or the beginning of a second painting. I've got my first painting contribution or collaboration that's already on the go, but I'm considering starting a second one, and actually this could form the basis of the starting point of a second one, I think. I'd have to speak to you about that, Stian, at some point, but definitely something that inspires me, so really thanks so much for that. Okay, the last contribution, but definitely not the least, is a piece of work from Susie Stockholm. Susie's come up with a really beautiful piece of work. I can almost see some kind of bird-like faces at the top of this. It's got eyes, maybe something that looks like beaks. But then we've got a colour palette that reminds me of the work of Mondrian in terms of the bright kind of primary colours placed with black outlines around them. Again, another departure from the work that I produced personally and the direction I would have imagined. But again, I really appreciate the fact that this has turned into something different than what I would normally do myself. So really like this piece of work. Really gorgeous piece of work, that, Susie. So thanks so much for that. Another great contribution. So that wraps up this episode. Really some amazing pieces of work on this episode. I do hope that this momentum keeps going and people carry on feeling that they want to add pieces of work. I'll always show off the work, and hopefully I'll always be able to show them, even if this channel becomes super popular and I get loads of contributions. I'm still hoping to show them off in one format or another. Fortunately, we're relatively early on, so that I'm able to show them all at this stage. If it gets to the point where I'm getting hundreds every week, then I might have to find other ways of being more efficient at showing them all off, either creating a Facebook page or an Instagram account specifically to show these off. But for as long as I can, I'm going to be talking about them and showing them off on my videos. So anyway, don't forget the links down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done already. And thanks so much for watching. Catch you back here again. See you later.